Robert Louis Stevenson. Treasure Island. Chapter 4. The Sea Chest. I quickly told my mother everything I knew, and I should probably have told her earlier. We immediately saw that we were in a difficult and dangerous situation. Some of the man's money, if he had any, was certainly owed to us. But it was not likely that his shipmates, especially the two I had seen, Black Dog and the Blind Beggar, would want to give up their money to pay his debts. The captain had told me to get on a horse and go to Dr. Livesey. But that would leave my mother alone and unprotected, which was not possible. In fact, it seemed impossible for either of us to stay in the house any longer. The sound of falling coal in the kitchen fire, even the ticking of the clock, made us afraid. We thought we could hear footsteps coming closer. Between the dead body of the captain in the room and the thought of the terrible blind beggar nearby and ready to return, there were moments when I jumped with fear. We had to decide quickly what to do. At last, we decided to go together to the nearby village to ask for help. We did it at once. Without hats, we ran out into the cold evening and the fog. The village was only a few hundred yards away, though we could not see it because it was on the other side of the next cove. What gave me hope was that it was in the opposite direction from where the blind man had come and where he had probably gone back. We reached the road in a few minutes, though we sometimes stopped to hold each other and listen. But we heard nothing unusual, only the quiet sound of the sea and the noises of animals in the woods. It was already evening when we reached the village, and I will never forget how happy I felt to see the yellow light in the houses and windows. But that, as it turned out, was the best help we would get there. You would think people would be ashamed, but no one agreed to come back with us to the Admiral Benbow. The more we told them about our trouble, the more everyone, men, women, and children, stayed safely inside their homes. The name of Captain Flint, which was new to me, was known to some of them, and made them very afraid. Some of the men who had worked in the fields near the Admiral Benbow said they had seen several strangers on the road and thought they were smugglers, so they ran away. One man had even seen a small ship in a nearby bay. In fact, anyone who had been a friend of the captain was enough to frighten them badly. In the end, although some people were willing to ride to Dr. Livesey, who lived in another direction, not one person would come with us to help defend the inn. They say fear can spread from one person to another, but strong arguments can also give people courage. So when everyone had spoken, my mother spoke to them. She said she would not lose money that belonged to her fatherless son. "If none of you dare," she said, "Jim and I will dare. We will go back the way we came, and we do not thank you, you big, strong, cowardly men. We will open that chest, even if we die for it. And I will thank you, Mrs. Crossley, for that bag, to bring back our rightful money." Of course, I said I would go with my mother. And of course, they all shouted that we were foolish and reckless. But even then, not one man agreed to come with us. The only help they gave was a loaded pistol, in case we were attacked. They also promised to have horses ready in case we were chased when we came back. And one boy was sent ahead to the doctor to ask for armed help. My heart was beating fast when we went out into the cold night for this dangerous task. The full moon was beginning to rise and shone red through the fog. This made us hurry, because it was clear that soon it would be as bright as day and anyone could see us. We moved quietly and quickly along the hedges. We did not see or hear anything that made us more afraid. At last, to our great relief, we reached the Admiral Benbow and closed the door behind us. I locked the door at once, and we stood there for a moment in the dark, breathing hard, alone in the house with the dead captain. Then my mother lit a candle in the bar, and holding hands, we walked into the parlor. He lay as we had left him, on his back, with his eyes open and one arm stretched out. "Pull down the blind, Jim," my mother whispered. They might come and look through the window. And now, she said when I had done it, we must get the key from him. But who will touch him? And she began to cry a little as she spoke. I went down on my knees at once. On the floor near his hand, there was a small round piece of paper, black on one side. I knew at once that this was the black spot. When I picked it up, I saw that on the other side there was a short message written clearly. You have till 10 tonight. He had until 10, Mother, I said. And just as I spoke, our old clock began to strike. The sudden sound frightened us badly, but the news was good because it was only 6. Now, Jim, she said, the key. I searched his pockets one by one. I found a few small coins, a thimble, some thread and large needles, a piece of tobacco partly used, his knife with the curved handle, a small compass, and a tinderbox. But there was no key, and I began to lose hope. Perhaps it is around his neck, my mother suggested. With great dislike, I opened his shirt at the neck. There, as we expected, we found the key hanging on a piece of tarred string. I cut it free with his own knife. We were full of hope now, and hurried upstairs at once to the small room where he had slept for so long, and where his chest had stood since he arrived. The chest looked like any other sailor's chest. The letter B was burned on the top with a hot iron, and the corners were damaged from long, rough use. "Give me the key," said my mother. The lock was very stiff, but she managed to turn it and open the lid quickly. A strong smell of tobacco and tar came from inside. On top, there was only a set of very good clothes, carefully cleaned and folded. My mother said they had never been worn. Under that, there were many different things: a navigation tool, a tin cup, several pieces of tobacco, 2 very fine pistols, a piece of silver, an old Spanish watch, and some other small objects of little value, mostly from foreign places. There was also a pair of compasses and 5 or 6 strange shells from the West Indies. I have often wondered why he carried those shells with him during his dangerous and wandering life. So far, we had found nothing of great value except the silver and the small objects, and these were not what we needed. Under everything, there was an old sea cloak, white from salt. My mother pulled it away quickly, and there, at the bottom of the chest, we saw a bundle wrapped in oilcloth, which looked like papers, and a canvas bag that made a clear sound of coins when touched. "I will show these men that I am an honest woman," said my mother. "I will take what is owed to me and not 1 coin more. Hold Mrs. Crossley's bag." Then she began to count the money from the sailor's bag into the one I was holding. It was a long and difficult job, because the coins were from many countries and of different sizes: doubloons, louis d'or, guineas, pieces of 8, and many others. The guineas were the fewest, and these were the only ones my mother knew how to count easily. When we were about halfway done, I suddenly put my hand on her arm. In the quiet, cold air, I had heard a sound that made my heart stop: the tapping of the blind man's stick on the frozen road. It came closer and closer while we sat there holding our breath. Then it hit sharply on the inn door. We heard the handle move and the bolt shake as the poor man tried to get in. Then there was a long silence, both inside and outside. At last, the tapping began again, and to our great relief, it slowly went farther away until we could not hear it anymore. "Mother," I said, "take everything and let's go." I was sure that the locked door would look suspicious and bring trouble to us. No one could understand how thankful I was that I had locked it, unless they had met that terrible blind man. But my mother, even though she was afraid, would not agree to take more than what was owed to her. She was also not willing to take less. She said it was not yet 7 o'clock, and she knew her rights and would take them. She was still arguing with me when we heard a low whistle far away on the hill. That was enough for both of us. "I will take what I have," she said, jumping up. "And I will take this to finish the count," I said, picking up the packet wrapped in oilcloth. In the next moment, we were feeling our way downstairs, leaving the candle by the empty chest. Then we opened the door and ran away. We had not started too soon. The fog was quickly disappearing. The moon was already shining clearly on the hills on both sides. Only in the lowest part of the valley and around the inn door was there still a little fog to hide us at first. Before we were halfway to the village, we would be in full moonlight. And that was not all. We could already hear the sound of several people running. When we looked back, we saw a moving light coming closer. It was someone carrying a lantern. "My dear," my mother said suddenly, "take the money and run. I am going to faint." I thought this would be the end for both of us. I was angry at the neighbors for being cowards. I also blamed my poor mother for being honest but also too stubborn, for being brave before and weak now. We had reached a small bridge. I helped her as she was losing strength to the side of the bank. Then she gave a sigh and fell against me. I do not know how I found the strength, and I am afraid I was rough, but I managed to pull her down the bank and a little under the bridge. I could not move her any farther because the bridge was too low. We had to stay there, my mother almost fully visible, and both of us close enough to hear everything from the inn.